Hi guys, this is gsno.com and I'm here with a review of the most compact flagship phone of 2020. It's the Sony Xperia 5 Mark II. So basically it's the Xperia 1 Mark II in a smaller version without the 4K display and with a camera that has the same sensor but lacks the time of flight sensor. The device is priced at around $800, which I know isn't exactly cheap, but in some countries there have been some price reductions. Okay, so one of the most compact phones I've seen over the past year and still packing a Snapdragon 865 CPU inside, plus this extra fluidity you can see here is generated by the high refresh rate. First of all, I'm going to talk about the design. Obviously, Sony keeps doing its own thing. It's a narrow phone, easily usable with a single hand, and it has this elongated and narrow format, which some people have nicknamed the remote control, the TV remote control format. It's also a pretty rectangular device, however, it has rounded edges which should theoretically affect your grip. In reality, it doesn't. We have quite a few buttons here, volume buttons, the power button with fingerprint scanner, and the camera button, plus an extra button for Google Assistant. Sometimes you may press it by mistake. Now, if you want measurements, this baby measures 8 mm in thickness and weighs an excellent 163 grams. Gorilla Glass at the front side, Gorilla Glass at the back side, which has a bit of a mirror effect, and it draws quite a bit of fingerprints and smudges. The good news, the camera doesn't protrude. We have an aluminum frame, and the handset also provides IP65, IP68 certification for water and dust proofing. It comes in black, gray, blue or pink and has a 6.1-inch screen. It's polarizing for sure. It has quite a bit of a chin here and quite a bit of a forehead. And I should mention that it's odd to see a phone without a punch hole or a notch for the, well, selfie camera. Okay, now aside from that, I think we can move on. Remember this, easy to use with a single hand, premium build, but maybe use a case to avoid fingerprints. As far as the screen is concerned, what you're seeing here is an OLED 6.1-inch. This time it's not a 4K screen. It's a 2520 over 1080 pixel display with 120 Hz refresh rate, HDR BT 2020 and 240 Hz touch sampling rate. The actual viewing experience will be put to the test right now. We have a clip here. It's set to Full HD, HDR at 60 frames per second, and the panel is, to be honest, quite gorgeous. I'm talking about very vivid colors, deep blacks, wide view angles, excellent contrast even in the full sunlight, and it's very pleasing to the eye no matter what you're doing, gaming, reading, watching videos. It feels like it's delivering a top-notch experience. The pixels have a pentile matrix arrangement, and as usual we did our own measurements and this is what we found out. So first of all, this is the brightness we achieved, 478 lux units, which is pretty good. It's not a record breaker like the Oppo Find X2, which is about double that, but definitely good. So with this value it beats Galaxy S20 FE 5G, the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro and the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It stays below the iPhone 11, the best-selling phone over the past year, and below the OnePlus 8 and the Oppo Reno 4 Pro 5G. As usual, Sony is providing quite a few features if you want to tweak the experience of the screen and make it your own. So you can go here, image quality settings, you have a creator mode and you have a standard mode. There's also the auto creator mode and the video image enhancement, plus white balance with, once again, a flurry of settings. Warm, medium, cool, custom with RGB sliders, a temperature slider, and there's more. There's a high refresh rate. You can use 120 Hz or stick to 60 Hz. Brightness level, adaptive brightness, sleep, phone size, display size, dark theme, and side sense, plus one-handed mode if you need that. I'm pretty impressed by this display, not so impressed by the chin and the forehead, but you can definitely live with them. Now inside the phone, let's see what we find. We have this app here telling us that the CPU is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 7nm plus CPU octa-core, accompanied by 8 gigs of RAM and as well as 128 GB of storage. There's also a 256 GB storage version plus microSD card slot. As you can already tell by me flicking through the menus and performing all sorts of actions on this handset, you'll definitely not encounter any trace of lag. The experience is very fluid and you can play in games like Call of Duty Mobile in an excellent manner. It's actually optimized and pre-installed on this phone because Sony has been sponsoring a contest, Call of Duty Mobile contest, with some Xperia handsets, and they're definitely a partner for the Call of Duty series. Now, aside from the excellent gaming experience and the lack of lag, we have benchmarks for you, and let's see those. So first of all, on 228, here we are on the 13th spot from the hundreds of phones we've tested, which is actually not half bad. It's just above the Xperia 1 Mark II, and at the same time it beats Huawei Mate 40 Pro, as well as the Galaxy S20 Plus and the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. It stays below the Galaxy S20 FE 5G, below the OnePlus 8T, and below the Motorola Edge Plus. Let's see another one, Geekbench 5 Multi-Core. This is the 5th spot, which is actually a pretty excellent experience, just above the iPhone 11 and Asus ROG Phone 3, but below the iPhone 11 Pro Max and the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I should also mention that it beats the OnePlus 8 and Oppo Find X2. Okay, so gamers will be happy to know that we placed 5th as well in 3D Mark's Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, above the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition 5G, above OnePlus 8, which I consider to be, even to this day, a solid gaming phone, and above the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro. We're below the Motorola Edge Plus and below the Asus Zenfone 7 Pro, which was a bit of a beast when it came to this benchmark. It's definitely top 5 material, if not top 10, but in general it keeps to the higher echelon of the benchmarks we performed. We also did other tests, like for example the temperature one, and here we are in benchmarks, 39.2 degrees Celsius, almost at the threshold of overheating, but not exactly there. The device doesn't feel hot. In games, a mere 34.5 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that's that. We're done with the benchmarks. What we're dealing here is a compact phone with a compact battery, I would say. 4000 mAh, lithium ion, 21 watt charging, and let's see what it delivers in our tests. Okay, so battery test, we start off with the video playback. I would say just decent 16 hours and 18 minutes. Nowadays we're used to 20 hours even. For example, the OnePlus 8 is quite a few hours higher. Anyway, with this value here, 16 hours and 18 minutes, we beat the Xperia 5, the predecessor basically, the Oppo Find X2, the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro, and the Asus Zenfone 7 Pro. We score below the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition, Motorola Edge Plus, and Huawei Mate 40 Pro. In PC Mark, things look a bit better, as you can see here with 13 hours and 35 minutes. This is actually continuous usage, perhaps more relevant than video playback, and it beats Galaxy S20 Plus, Xperia 5, and Huawei Mate 40 Pro. It's still no match for a few other phones, like for example iPhone 12 Pro Max, Huawei P40 Pro, OnePlus 8T, and Motorola Edge Plus. Okay, when it comes to the charging, it's quite long, actually very long for today's requirements, 2 hours and 27 minutes, and after 30 minutes you're at 24%, which is a big letdown. It takes 1 hour to charge the phone halfway. Once again, a pretty big letdown. I would say the battery is just okay. I wish the charging was faster, and I wish we had wireless charging. Now on the acoustic front, we have a set of stereo speakers here, as we've seen before on other Xperias. First of all, we have this slit here for the bottom speaker, and we also have this slit here for the earpiece, which doubles as the other speaker. As usual, we have a dynamic vibration system, which you can see triggered when you're messing around with the settings, and well, the vibration motor is a bit too strong for my taste. And there's Dolby Atmos with settings like dynamic, movie, music, custom, and a graphic equalizer. Plus, we even have an audio jack at the top of the phone. Now, the actual experience is going to be revealed right now. Okay, several impressions. The body of the phone vibrates a lot, perhaps the most I've seen over the past year. Satisfying volume, although to be honest I've heard higher, a real stereo experience, a pretty solid bass, nice high notes, and a very pleasant sounding voice. If you're into voice and a cappella recordings, you'll be happy with the result achieved here. The vibration is a bit too much for me. I would say rest assured it's turned off, because otherwise it's a, well, turn off. Okay, so we have other tests here. We have a decibel meter test to reveal the volume, and in the typical sample test, the acoustic sample test, 81.2 decibels at the bottom and 86.2 decibels at the top. So in general, the bottom speaker is more powerful than the top one. This time is the other way around. We don't see that very often. With the bottom experience, or I would rather say with the higher experience, the top one, we beat the OnePlus 8T and Motorola Edge Plus as well as the iPhone 11, but we scored below the Oppo Find X2 and the Huawei Mate 40 Pro. This is music, basically acoustic sample. In games, I was a bit disappointed by the 92.7 decibels. We usually require 100 decibels to, well, enter the higher echelons of our tests. Were placed on the 196 spot. This pretty much speaks for itself. In real life it feels stronger, but as I said before, not the highest volume in the world. Experience is satisfying and it may beat LG Velvet and Galaxy S20 Ultra, but it's no match for almost 200 other phones. Now on the camera front there's a lot to unpack, and up front here we have a mere 8 megapixel camera. Most companies, even Apple, have switched to at least 12 megapixels. Some of them are even offering 32 megapixel, even 40 megapixel cameras. This is just a simple 8 megapixel shooter. At the back side things get a bit more complicated. There's size technology and 3 12 megapixel cameras. We have the main one with f1.7 aperture, dual pixel phase detection, autofocus and optical image stabilization. Large pixels, actually very large, 1.8 micron. There's the telephoto camera with 3x optical zoom and its own optical image stabilization and phase detection autofocus, f2.4 aperture, and the third ultra wide camera, f2.2, 124 degrees of capture and phase detection autofocus of the dual pixel variety. LED flash here, size optics, and the special eye tracking for humans and pets. And using a special app on board, you can shoot 4K 120 frames per second HDR video, which not many cameras can do. Of course, there are a lot of details here. The technology is taken from the Sony Alpha line of cameras, which, Sony has been selling quite successfully over the past years. You can take 20 frames per second shots and in a burst capture mode. You can use the Bion ZX processing engine. The camera's ISP does 60 operations per second. There's a RAW capture, there's an RGB IR sensor, there's a 5-axis optical image stabilization steady shot, and so much more. But let's go above this, go away from this, and focus straight on the captures we've taken. We have quite a few of those. Sadly, it's December. It's a pretty cloudy December and also a rainy December. I wish it were snow. No trace of snow, just water and rain and clouds. And these are some of the shots we've taken with these handsets. So regular shot and ultra wide shot, and then the zoom. So first of all, I would say that the zoom camera is satisfying. I would put it on par with Galaxy S20 FE Fan Edition and also Galaxy S20 Plus. There haven't been many high-profile 3x optical zoom phones this year, but this one is definitely their equal. The colors may look a bit dull, that's what I noticed, but there's not a big difference between the main camera and the ultra-wide camera when it comes to, well, colors. There are some attempts at close-ups here, not bad. We don't have a macro camera, so we're taking those regular close-ups further, a few more centimeters than the typical, I would say, 4 centimeters for the macro. Once again, the colors are dull and there's not a lot of detail here. We're still working with a 12 megapixel camera. I would say the details are on par maybe with the last gen iPhone, but definitely inferior compared to this generation's iPhone. The colors are kept a bit more realistic, and as you can see, the regular shot has a decent level of white, but the ultra wide one is a bit more washed out, a bit more white, even though they're the same resolution. Okay, more shots here. Excellent focus in close-ups for objects. Pretty well calibrated colors, even though they're a bit cooler than usual and a bit more dull and tempered. They won't pop up as Samsung and Apple phones usually do in the area of photos. 2x zoom, 3x zoom, so I would say we're doing quite fine. Maybe next year we're also going to see a periscope. We don't know if that will happen or not. But strangely enough, as the gallery progresses, you'll see that aside from an excellent focus here, the colors get a bit more intense. This shade of blue is a bit more intense than I perceived with my own eyes. And this red is definitely exaggerated compared to what I've seen with my own eyes. So the sky is also too white, so there should be a proper exposure and white balance set there. These photos were taken with the auto mode. As usual for an Xperia, in order to properly take advantage of the experience, you have to, guess what, rely on manual options. Set your own ISO, exposure, white balance, and what have you. More shots here. I would have to say I'm satisfied with the clarity, and as an all-rounder this performs fine, so not many objections here. It's a bit like an iPhone, but with duller colors. That's what you should remember. An iPhone 11 with duller colors, or better, the 11 Pro. Okay, now we played around with this statue and even took some bokeh shots of it to separate it from the background, or at least we try to. And more captures here, perhaps with better calibrated colors than the initial gallery. The standout point would have to be that the ultra-wide camera definitely keeps the colors pretty close to the main camera behavior. Several selfies. To be honest, the camera surpassed my expectations. I always criticize an 8 megapixel camera and I always call it dated when it comes to Sony, but somehow it actually went above my expectation, and here we have the shots. Not bad. I'm talking about the texture, detail, how expressive the face remains, and let's see just how well we get separated from the background in one of those bokeh portrait shots. Now, it's pretty rudimentary compared to what I've seen on a Huawei or Samsung phone, this bokeh, and at times it was even blurry, believe it or not, so 1/3 of the pictures is probably blurry, so rest assured you're focusing properly and selecting the proper level of blur. Okay, so all in all, you can see I'm not very impressed. Probably the colors and the ultra-wide camera are the best things about it, and the focus as well, but it's not a memorable camera. It's not something I would remember as the years pass. Okay, so that's the gist of it. I would say it's maybe compatible with the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition on a good day. It can beat the OnePlus 8T, that's what I feel, and it definitely needs maybe punchier colors and a more precise bokeh in the future. And why not an increase when it comes to the level of zoom. This is daytime capture, and now let's talk about the low light. I still feel the need to highlight the fact that if you want to really get the best out of the camera, you may want to try out the dedicated apps. I'm talking about this one here, the Photo Pro. As you can see, there are a lot of options to tweak here, and I mean a lot: metering, focus, ISO, exposure, white balance, raw capture, and a few sub options related to focus. And you can even choose your lens. You can see here 16, 24 or 70 millimeter, and maybe you'll get better results than I did, but be patient and maybe you can encounter some lag, especially in, well, low light conditions. Okay, so this is the series of photos I've taken. Let's go back here, and this time let's actually check out the low light shots. We're changing town, and boy was I disappointed. Now, the image may look crisp at first sight, but there are also high inconsistencies. We didn't capture as much light as I expected. The ultra-wide camera is just okay, and the street light halos feel a bit too big. We have blurry shots, which is something which shouldn't happen for a flagship. There's a lot of noise when zooming in. Keep that in your mind. And aside from that, it didn't impress me. The colors are a bit too warm. It's definitely not a record breaker. I remember the Xperia 5 being a landmark in this regard, but definitely not. Some shots here are moved, some are out of focus, some streetlight halos are like this, overblown and basically not visible. I'm actually underwhelmed by what's happening here, and I don't understand it. With a proper night mode, we could have achieved greatness, but it just didn't happen. And it's not just a hit and miss. It happens again and again and again, and it's letting us down a lot because Sony actually knew how to take pictures in the dark. I mean, this is an okay shot, but I've seen phones that cost $200 or $300 deliver this, so I wanted just a bit more. Of course, you're going to see a full gallery in our text review, but color me unimpressed. We even tried out some gimmicks with the manual mode and a manual camera, and still we are not impressed. When the bottom area looks okay, the top one doesn't, and vice versa. Okay, so I feel I'm about done with the photos. Let's see the videos. Okay, we have quite a few of those, and I'm going to start with the most relevant, which as usual should be the stabilization test. Well, in this area, Sony doesn't disappoint, that's for sure. Last year, the Xperia 5 held the title for the best nighttime stabilization. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, so in the daytime, you'll be very happy with the stabilization when walking around. Things feel pretty crisp. There's a lot of detail here and a lot of sharpness, so there's that. But the colors will feel a bit too intense at times, which is odd, seeing that they were pretty dull in the photographs. There is a good texture of objects. You can tell which is metal, which is plastic, which is glass or wood. And we definitely have vivid reds. Nice focusing, by the way. And speaking of focusing, this is the focus test. I would say nice focus because it's accurate, but it's also slower compared to what Samsung can achieve nowadays. It takes an extra second to properly clear up what's in the background. And as you can see here, it missed the close-up focus, so much so that I had to do it again. This is another test. So basically an extra second or half a second longer to focus compared to what Samsung can provide us. Okay, let's see the selfie video. This is pretty underwhelming. If you see this on a bigger screen or a PC or on a TV set, it's very shaky. It lacks detail and the colors are a bit washed out, so definitely not good for vlogging. It's 2 times worse than the Galaxy Note 10 Plus from last year. We also have 4K HDR video, which is best seen on a proper TV set. Right now it looks washed out and a bit blue. You definitely need a high-end TV to properly experience it. We also have a carousel here, lots of colors, excellent details, and the image is crisp. So if you want details and crispness, this is for you, and the colors are vivid, so there's that. And remember, you can shoot in 4K, 120 FPS and HDR, which is something I haven't seen on other major phones over the past few months. So I'm happy with what's happening here, even though I still feel it's inferior to the iPhone 12 Pro Max and even to the Galaxy Note 10 Plus, which is a landmark even today. These have been daytime photos and the stabilization remains the best things about it, and here we have the disappointing low light video. What went wrong here? I suggest you go to the last year review of the Xperia 5 and check it out. It had the best nighttime video capture. It had the best nighttime stabilization, and this time the Xperia 5 Mark II disappoints us a lot. We have dark areas, we have huge halos, we have black bars over the image, we have shakiness. Everything that can be wrong goes wrong here in this nighttime video capture test. If you want to film at night, you are better served with buying the Xperia 5, not the Xperia 5 II. I don't know what went wrong, but something definitely did. Okay, so we're done with the camera. If you want to learn more, we have a text review, and once again, if you want to get the best of this device, you can use the Pro apps. The Pro one for the photos, and this is the Pro one for the videos, and if you choose the proper filter here, as you can see, you can go up to 120 frames per second. Now it's time to talk about other things, like for example the fact that this is a 4G and a 5G phone with Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi Direct, GPS, AGPS, DLNA, GLONASS, BDS, Bluetooth 5.1, NFC, USB-C 3.1 at the bottom with USB OTG support. It has nano SIM card slots and supports about 4 bands as far as the 5G is concerned. And let's see how it did in our tests. Okay, so this is the test that we did for 4G. To be honest, not very impressive. 108 megapers download on 4G and 41.4 megapers upload, expected a bit more. And on Wi-Fi, actually 96.4 megapers download and 107 megapers upload on an older 2.4 gigahertz network. Didn't have a 5 gigahertz one laying around. I've seen better with other flagships, but these conditions may fluctuate depending on your provider, not just the phone. In general, Xperias were quite fine connectivity wise. Okay, so by the way, the calls were pretty loud and clear, just in case people are still making calls nowadays. Software wise, I'm a bit disappointed. There was a time when Sony offered us the latest Android, even before other companies, even before any other companies. Here we only have Android 10 with Xperia UI, and it's aging a lot. For sure. At least on the security front, things are pretty okay. So there's the fingerprint scanner in the power button and it's pretty snappy. I put my finger here and it's unlocked. There's that. We have the Google News area here in the leftmost home screen. If you want to navigate, I'm using gestures now, but you can also select your 3 buttons here. So this is the multitasking. involving the carousel of thumbnails for the open apps, and of course you should also be able to do the whole split screen thingy. And as usual, Sony has a plus related to the split screen experience. There is the multi-window switch there are 2 panes here, 2 carousels, and you can pair apps together so they open up and split the screen in 2. Well, aside from that, if you swipe down, you see the notifications and quick settings, which are pretty stock. Also stock are the widgets. And pretty close to stock is the settings area with options for connectivity, appearance, apps, battery, display, sound, storage, privacy, security, and digital well-being and parental control. We have notification dots, and there is that side sense menu, which I never use. It's basically like the Samsung Galaxy phone's side menu, the edge menu, with a bunch of shortcuts, and it gets in my way more often than not. The pre-installed apps, we have quite a few of them. We have Sony's own music player, and we have the game enhancer, which is basically a sort of game launcher with extra options, and quite a few of them. You can also record your gameplay up to Full HD. Nowadays should be a bit more if possible, maybe Full HD Plus. Okay, we have the imaging edge, we have the PlayStation app, we have Call of Duty pre-installed, Cinema Pro, Photo Pro, we have Netflix and Facebook, we have Amazon and Amazon Prime Video, News and Booking.com, and Tidal with 3 months free. So that's nice. By the way, Metallica recently reached Tidal with its full catalog. Okay, so that's that. This is the very light and compact Xperia 5 Mark II, and it's time for the verdict. And just so you know who you're talking to, let's go to our website, gsn1.com, and discuss the pros and cons of the handset. On the pro side, obviously the fact that it's a compact phone, easy to wield, that we have stereo speakers which are pretty solid, a bright screen, and a pretty satisfying experience, at least color-wise, good performance from the CPU, a pretty decent battery life, and solid selfies, photos, not videos. When it comes to the main camera, I would say that what we got here is pretty satisfying in the area of focus, maybe colors. The ultra-wide camera is not a letdown compared to many other phones. Solid stabilization and solid close-ups. Plus, for photo and video buffs, they have their own manual apps to toy with Sony Alpha technology in the mix. Those are the pros. On the cons, it's a fingerprint magnet. It charges in a lot of time, 2.5 hours almost. It doesn't have wireless charging. It has an annoying vibration motor inside, which is supposed to accompany your music, and it spoils it. The low light capture was a total disappointment. Actually, didn't see that coming, both photo and video. I would say that the video capture overall is below the predecessor Xperia 5. And well, there's no Android 11, even though Sony was at the forefront of updates a while ago, quite a while ago. In the end, there are people out there who want a compact phone. This is basically the Xperia 1 Mark II compact version, without a 4K screen, but with a higher refresh rate, which can be felt in menus and, pretty snappy experience. It's pretty future-proof. You're not going to experience lag on this phone, and I sure hope it gets Android 11 fast. It's better suited if you want to consume Netflix, if you want to listen to music, but if you're aiming at proper photo shooting on auto, there are many Samsung and Huawei options for you, and even Apple ones. If you're a professional, if you know what you're doing, you can mess around with the manual mode in a photo and video department, but that will eat up your time, and nowadays nobody has enough time. So, solid for gaming, video and music, but for the camera it's a bit of a letdown, in some areas being beaten even by its predecessor, the Xperia 5, and this shouldn't happen in the world of flagships. This is from gsn1.com. Hope we cleared up for you everything about the Xperia 5 Mark II. This has been the review. Bye bye.